Good morning, students. Today we will be studying the part 2 of this chapter, chapter number 7, States of Matter, which we previously studied in our last class. Now, the three states of matter, that is solid, liquid, and gas. And what is matter? Anything which occupies space and has weight is known as matter. So, further studying about the states of matter, we should come to know that what are the properties of these matters. In solid, if we study about the properties, they cannot be compressed, they have a definite volume, and solids have a definite shape because the intermolecular space between these solids is very less. Some examples of solids are pencil, book, chair, marbles, etc. Now coming to liquids, the liquids have they also cannot be compressed, but they do not have a definite shape. They can take the shape of any container in which they are poured, and but liquids have a definite volume. Some examples of liquids are water, milk, and juice. Coming to gases, neither they have fixed volume, neither they have fixed shape, and they can be compressed very easily. Some examples of of gases are air and other gases. Now, what is solution? Solution is the mixture of a solute and a solvent. When a solute is dissolved in a solvent, the result of that is known as the solution. Now, what is the solute? Solute is the solid thing which is dissolved in a liquid. And what is solvent? Solvent is the liquid in which this solid gets dissolved. For example, if you take a glass of water, water is the solvent, and you take 2 or 3 spoons of the sugar or the salt, that is known as the solute. And when you mix both the things, then the obtained solution is the solution. The sweet water or the salty water will be known as the solution. So, soluble and insoluble things, the substance or the thing which is dissolved in any liquid, it is known as the soluble solute. The substance which do not dissolve in liquids and forms precipitate are known as the insoluble things. Now, the examples of soluble things are salt and sugar. Salt and sugar are soluble in water, whereas if you talk about the sand or the chalk powder, they are insoluble in the water or in the liquid, in any of the solvent. And water is also known as the universal solvent. Universal solvent means maximum things present on the earth can be easily dissolved in water. So that is why, students, water is known as the universal solvent. So students, are you clear about the soluble and insoluble things now? The soluble things are the things which can be easily dissolved in any liquid, and insoluble things are the things which are not easily dissolved in any of the solvent. Now, after soluble and insoluble things, studying about soluble, we start with the topic of miscible liquids and immiscible liquids. What are miscible liquids? Miscible liquids are the liquids which gets mixed very completely and very easily into each other, whereas immiscible liquids, they do not mix into each other completely. They are easily separable. We can see from our eyes, we can see that they both are easily separated. Now, miscible liquids, if we talk about miscible liquids, when two liquids can get dissolved into each other. For example, if you take lemon juice and dissolve it in a glass of water, then these two liquids are easily mixed into each other, and that is why they are called miscible liquids. Whereas talking about Miscible liquids are also separated by the help of fractional distillation, because they are so easily mixed, and they have different boiling temperature, boiling points. So they are separated by the help of fractional distillation, because both the liquids which are mixed together, they have different boiling points. So students, miscible liquids, is it clear to all of you? If you have any queries, please just let me know. Now, immiscible liquids. Immiscible liquids are those liquids which do not get mixed with each other. For example, oil and water. Oil and water is a very good example of immiscible liquids. They stick to the, if you see the diagram, this is known as the separating funnel, and we used to separate the two immiscible liquids with the help of this separating funnel. Separation of substances. Separation of substances, when two insoluble substances, or maybe the solid particles, when they are mixed with each other, then we need to separate those substances. How do we separate these substances from each other? There are certain processes through which we separate these substances. The first process is filtration. In this case, when in a solvent, when immiscible or insoluble impurities are mixed, they are separated through filtration. In sedimentation, again the impurities which are heavy and they settle down, they are separated through sedimentation. And decantation is similar to the sedimentation, but opposite to, like the heavier particles, when they settle down, when we take the pure form from the upper part, is known as decantation. Now the separation of substances. First, talking about the filtration, the solution is passed through a filter paper. The liquid passes through the filter paper, while the soluble substances get retained on the filter paper. For example, the sand and water can be separated by the filtration. Or one very common example of filtration can be taken from your daily life, and that is when you make tea at home and you use a sieve or a sieve, and you just strain that tea through that sieve, the strainer, tea strainer it is called. This is a very good example of the filtration, that when you pour that tea through sieve, you get the pure tea in the cup, and then the tea leaves are separated through the process of the filtration. This is the example which we take from our daily life. Now talking about the second method, that is the decantation. Decantation is a fast method of separating a mixture of a heavier solid and a liquid. When in a liquid a heavier solid is dissolved and it is not dissolved completely, it settles down at the bottom. Then for separation, the mixture of water and sand, if we take the example of water and sand, first we should let the sand to settle down on the bottom of the container. This we can observe in the case when through a hand pump the water is taken out in a bucket, and we let that water settle down for some time. We see that the sand is settled at the bottom of the bucket, and we pour that water from the top into other container, and we obtain pure water from that. This process is known as decantation, and the heavy particles which are settled down at the bottom are known as sediments, or the process is also known as the sedimentation. Now the sedimentation and decantation are two more or less same types of processes, but they are known as different, they are named as the different processes, because the sediments are the heavy particles which are settled down at the bottom, and decantation is the process in which we take the upper layer of that water, the pure water. Filtration, as you have already understood, and I have taught you about the filtration, that filtration is a very common example, is a very common thing which we use in our day-to-day life while the making of tea also. Now students, just go through it once, that sedimentation is the process of the heavier components in a mixture settling down after adding water to it. Decantation is removing the water along with the dust to further remove dust and is used filtration. Now examples of decantation helps a little in removing the tea leaves, but filtration helps the further. Decantation is also used to separate liquids that don't mix with each other. Now, all these processes are also interlinked. In our next slide, if you will see all the three states of the matter, students, you will observe it very clearly and very nicely you will come to know. And you can make this diagram in your notebooks also of the next slide which you are going to see. Here is the next slide, students, the states of matter, the solid, liquid and gas. Now when you see that water in its liquid form, it is present and it is freezed, it becomes ice, and if it is heated, it comes into the vapor in the form of vapor. So students, you have to draw this diagram in your notebooks. So that's all for this chapter. If you see, we will be providing you the notes and the important summary of the chapter, students. And if still you are not understanding any specific topic, then you can always contact me through WhatsApp, and you can clear your doubts through WhatsApp. And yes, most important thing, in our next class, we will be doing a recap of the entire chapter. And we will be giving you the notes as well as an assignment based on this chapter. So students, are you clear about all the topics which have been covered in this chapter? Please do let me know. And yes, that's all for now. All of you, take care of yourself, remain in the house, be healthy, be safe, students.